am here to speak to you about my works of fiction. I'm best known as a meditation teacher, as a mystical philosopher. I've written numerous nonfiction books, but I've also written 6 novels, and I'm finishing my 7th. And finally, after 10 years of writing fiction, it occurred to me that I wanted to begin to introduce people to what I am trying to do with my stories. Because I've always been compelled by the power of fiction to present maps, spiritual maps, that can ignite awakening and guide us to fulfillment. Now, I've been a fan of Philip K. Dick since I was a teenager. And Philip K. Dick, in his novels, presents a spiritual mythos, a spiritual understanding of reality that unfolds through his stories. And when I look at my own novels, I see that very naturally has happened all through the 6 novels, and now even more consciously in the 7th. So I wanted to present to you how that works, how fiction can ignite awakening, and also how my novels are holding everything that I understand about awakening and about spiritual pursuit in maybe the biggest, broadest, and most bold possible way, certainly possible for me. So first of all, my excitement about writing fiction came from reading this book. This is a book called Contingency, Irony, and Solidarity by Richard Rorty. Richard Rorty, in the late 20th century, was an incredibly well-respected, well-known American philosopher out of Princeton University. He began in the analytic tradition, which, as you may or may not know, is very focused on how meaning is contained in words and sentences, and how can we really, because the idea was if we don't understand how we communicate meaning, we really can't talk about anything else. Rorty eventually moved away from the analytic tradition on pragmatic grounds because he felt like we need to think about what's going to work. And the reason he felt that is because to him, it felt that our biggest problem in the world is the fragmentation of human society. He felt that what we needed was solidarity. We needed a way to come together, to see ourselves as unified rather than splintered. And so contingency, irony, solidarity includes his philosophical ideas about how that works. But he does say, and he says this right at the beginning, he doesn't necessarily think that philosophy and philosophical theory is really going to do it. And I want to read that passage because it made such a big impression on me and has led to my desire to write and create fiction. And so what Rorty said there was, in my utopia, human solidarity would be seen not as a fact to be recognized by clearing away prejudice or burrowing down to the previously hidden depths, but rather as a goal to be achieved. This process of coming to see other human beings as one of us, rather than as them, is a matter of detailed description of what unfamiliar people are like and of redescription of what we ourselves are like. This is a task not for theory, but for genres such as ethnography, the journalist report, the comic book, the docudrama, and especially the novel. When I read that, it ignited my imagination, and it made me feel that I wanted to write fiction. I wanted to express what I feel inside in stories, which would allow the reader to identify with the characters, not to learn something from that character over there, but to find themselves in that character. You know, my books are clearly for people with spiritual interests, clearly for people who are on a path. And that can often be a challenging and very lonely endeavor. And my stories, hopefully, allow you to find characters who are experiencing what you're experiencing, who have the doubts that you have, who have the questions that you have, who have the challenges that you have, and are finding their way through it. Hopefully you will learn something. You will learn about how the spiritual path works, and I want to communicate that. But even more importantly, hopefully you'll feel like you're not alone. Because the characters in my novels, although fictional, represent people like us. They certainly represent me. They represent the various aspects of the path that I have encountered all the way through. And so that's why I am writing fiction. I'm writing fiction so that we can find each other, and we can find in our story the story of humanity, the story of all people who are waking up to higher possibilities. Now, I wanted to share with you the very first page and a half of my very first novel. So that novel is called Transdimensional Crossing. It's a story about a character named Jack and a group of other characters who come together. And I think this short passage will give you a good sense of not only what this story is about, because this story represents a kind of blueprint for all of my fiction. What I'm about to read to you describes in essence, and certainly in flavor and in spirit, what all of my books are about. And it starts like this. The one thing I feel certain about is that reality, or at least everything that is really real, exists between time and space. Plato was right, at least in this. The physical and mental objects passing from the past to the future are like shadows dancing on a cave wall. All any of us has to do, if we want to see a deeper truth, is get up from our seat, turn, and face the brilliant light behind us. We seldom do. Will we have the courage to stare unblinkingly into that light? Can we rest our gaze there long enough for all the tears to be shed? This is a story about a handful of people who turned to face the light. I wish I could say we were a band of intrepid explorers who bravely faced into the truth. But really, we were more like grade school kids, leaning back in our chairs, surprised when we tipped over. We were lying there on our backs, staring into the light, and unable to get out of our chairs and back upright. We were forced into a deep and long look at a reality that any one of us would have readily avoided if we could have. But now that the truth has been seen, there is no going back. You can't take back what has been seen, or at least none of us can. So those of us who survive the ordeal will go forward together into an unknown, non-future without a past. And so that's how my first novel begins. And this novel, as all of my novels, are reflections of my own experience. They're reflections of how I stumbled into higher experiences of reality, like so many of us do. And how I, over time, gathered and found other like-minded souls to share the path with. And that collection of like-minded others has been so valuable to me on the path that I felt I wanted to write novels to show what's possible, to show how we can transcend fear and uncertainty and expand into that light, and how we can be helped in that and will be helped in that by others on the path, some who have more experience than us, some who have the same experience, some who have less experience. But together we can be mutually supportive, and we can find that we are not alone. And that is exactly what my novels are always about, the fact that we are not alone on the path. The path is well trodden. There's many of us on it. Often we don't know each other. We're separate in that way. But we are not alone. And it's good that we're not alone, because the world needs more people to wake up. And that's what my novels are in support of. So if you are curious, and I hope you are, pick up a copy of Transdimensional Crossing, and I'd love to know what you think if you read it. Thank you very much.